This is Hokutu no Ken for the Nintendo Famicom, developed by Shoei Systems and released in 1986. At first, I thought this was Fist of the North Star for the NES, but apparently it's not. That's actually the second game in the Hokutu no Ken series. That's what we got stateside. Hokutu no Ken is a right-to-left side scrolling fighting game based on the Fist of the North Star anime franchise. Take into account when this game came out back in the 80s. Access to Japanese anime was not what it is today. There was very little broadcast stateside, and properties like this usually had to have a really good video store, or maybe a really clever comic store that was also into the rental business. There was a ton of anime in existence in Japan, of course, but translated stuff for a United States audience was a very small pool. There was a ton that I wanted to watch when I was a kid, it just wasn't available to me. Also, I think we ran into regional problems. I grew up in New England, and we had a particular pool of cartoons. I can't say that's the same for the rest of the country. I do know that different regions had different access, so it's possible somebody saw it elsewhere. Eventually, I did find a copy of this, and I watched it, and I think the story's pretty unique. It's a post-apocalypse story with some superpowered heroes, basically. In this story, someone kidnapped Ken's girlfriend, that's you, Ken, and they left him for dead. Of course, Ken doesn't die, and he goes on a rescue mission. That's basically what the anime is, and the story to the game, I can't speak Japanese, but I guess that's what we're doing here. The thing with Ken is that he's a successor to a specific ancient martial art that involves using pressure points. He can punch somebody in a very specific way, and it causes them to basically hemorrhage and explode. It's particularly gory in the movie, and it's oddly entertaining, mostly because you're constantly watching terrible people get handled this way. This is kind of what you're doing in this game too. You punch somebody, they hemorrhage and explode. Great. That's really the main pull here. You're walking around punching or kicking enemies, and you're watching them explode in front of you. It's definitely violent. Crazy violent when you think about it. And on this first level in particular, it's pretty much non-stop punching and exploding action. The handling is pretty stiff though, and when you press to jump, your jump is not that smooth. It's pretty awkward. A button punches, B kicks. The kick, if you land it, it'll launch somebody off screen, and if you punch them, you'll get this little exploding animation. I suppose you could look at this a little bit like Kung Fu for the NES, but nowhere near as good at handling. It's also not an intuitive game. I played the first level for close to 10 minutes before I stopped to look for a manual to try to figure out what I was doing wrong. I was just repeating the same thing over and over again. I beat up like 100 enemies before I felt I was going nowhere. So the thing is that this game looks like a side-scrolling game, but you can also go up at certain parts and get to other components of the level, and that's what you need to do here. When you see this little girl appear in like a doorway, those are the areas that you have to explore, but there is a pattern you have to follow. Like, on the first level, you have to enter the place when you first see the girl, and then you're in a new hallway. Then you're going to see her again, but you don't want to go into that first hall. When you see her a second time in this zone, that's where you go. So you got to figure out these patterns as you go. To enter a new hall, you have to press A and B and press up on the joypad. And you really have to work on the timing of these presses to make it happen because it's not smooth, and I find myself jumping multiple times before I can get the combination right. When I get to the first boss, he completely blasts me clear off the screen almost immediately. It's fast, it's kind of weird, I didn't know what was even happening. I got through him eventually, but when you use a new life, you're back at the start of the level, which kind of stinks. Eventually I noticed that some of the enemies will actually drop off power-up when you kill them, and you want to grab those. On the first level, it's the pink guys. When they explode, there's this little scream, it's a little pink icon that floats. If you can grab it quick enough, it's a power-up. You're going to get a star at the top of the screen. The stars are what upgrade you. With the first star, you can suddenly jump super high. Too high, actually. It feels like it becomes even harder to control. But as you get more stars, you can punch faster, you can kick faster, and eventually you'll throw multiple punches and kicks in a row. And when you have enough stars, when you max them out, you actually can also run really fast, so you kind of accumulate everything and you become sort of superpowered, I guess. You'd think that this would make the boss easier to beat at the end of the first level, but that's not really what I experienced. I still seem to get killed pretty easy with this guy one way or the other. And also, there are apparently finishing moves for the various bosses that they programmed. If you defeat the first boss with 10 kicks and then a punch, or maybe it's the second boss is just 10 punches, you get a special sort of combo, I guess. I guess it's nice to know, but I haven't managed to do this in practice. I got to the second level though, and it's definitely tougher, and the basic enemies here, they take more to defeat. I guess that's sort of what you'd expect anyway. But I found myself spending a lot of time in the first level just trying to figure this one out. With the FAQ I found online, somebody seemed to suggest that this was a super easy game because you can't die. I'm guessing that's because they were using a hacked ROM. I'm guessing, because I have a cartridge. You die plenty. The upgrade to your powers is certainly nice here, and the jumping part of the equation, it really makes it feel strange for me. I don't like losing so much control, so it's really kind of clunky. I think the music too, it's a fairly small loop, and it's definitely nothing special. After a while it's a bit of a bother, and I turn it down. The color choices for this one, I think these are also problematic at times. Certain projectiles or enemies are the same colors as the background, so you can't see them. I know there was a limited color palette with the NES, but there are a lot of complex NES games out there that don't run into this type of problem at all. I think maybe some different color choices might have made certain levels nicer to play, that's all. I definitely haven't mastered this one, and I find myself not doing nearly as well as the walkthroughs I've been seeing online. I know there are Game Genie codes that go along with this game too, but I haven't really given them a try. I might just be satisfied with seeing those higher levels of this game watching someone else's video, because it's taken a lot for me to get to even the end of level 2. I think, overall, I guess it's okay. The cartridge looks awesome, that's for sure, but it just doesn't handle that well. I've seen certainly worse handling in games. This one just doesn't feel as fluid to play as I'd like it to be. Well, that's all I have today for Hokutu no Ken for the Nintendo Famicom. This is one cart out of the set. I actually have all 4 games, I think, for the Famicom. I'm going to start going through them. I'm definitely wanting to check those out just to see what they might have improved on over time. Thanks for stopping by to take a look. Hope to catch you on another video.